Mike and Virginia Chevalier are not only diehard Broncos fans, but they've supported DNVR for a long time as DNVR members. They're a husband and wife team with over 15 years of financial services experience, and you can visit them at DNVRmortgage.com and get entered to win a free DNVR shirt or hat of your choice when you do. And most importantly, get set up for a free consultation to discuss all of your options. Since your home is likely to be one of your largest assets and your mortgage your largest debt, they believe it's important to consider your full financial picture when purchasing a home. That includes considering your long-term and short-term planning goals, your investments, and your tax situation. Mike and Virginia will work tirelessly to find the best loan for your situation. Visit them at DNVRmortgage.com and enter to win a free DNVR shirt or hat when you do. And most importantly, get set up with that free consultation. That's Michael Chevalier, NMLS number 1931006, and Virginia Chevalier, NMLS number 1910631. Let's jump into the show.
Number one for the one and only DNVR. Two goes out to Zach, Mase, RK, and the bar. Three for Mr. B in that old trophy case. Number four, we're still waiting for. Well, bring on the chase. Out on the field, a mile high, Broncos win is our desire. Couple with a breakfast brew and a friend bleed orange and blue to the bitter end. Come and join us at the DNVR. We are DNVR.
Welcome in to the DNVR Broncos podcast presented by MSU Denver Online. Appreciate you guys hanging out with us this morning as there's clearly nothing else interesting to follow. So I'm glad that we can be that escape for you guys on a completely slow news day. Of course, the DNVR Broncos podcast is presented by MSU Denver Online. Head over to msudenver.edu/online to scope out all they have to offer. 750 total classes. If there's anything that you're thinking, hey, I really want to further my education on this subject and learn more about this, that, the other thing, get a degree in a certain field so you can further your education, but you still have to work. You don't have time to go to school in normal hours. Well, msudenver.edu/online is the perfect solution for you, and rigorous and affordable programs taught by professors who bring the real world into the classroom. So check out msudenver.edu/online. Oh, muted.
Muted!
Oh, no. It's one of those nights or mornings, I guess. I was going to say, my boys, what's up? We're all running on just a couple hours of sleep, but I'm happy to be joining you guys today.
Okay, yeah. What time did you get to sleep, Zach? Let's just do a quick run around.
I was the earliest of everyone, but I went to bed at 1, which is very late for me.
2:55 here.
In terms of like your normal bedtime, you might have been up the latest.
Right, exactly.
It's all a matter of perspective, because I fell asleep, I think, around 2:30. But that's only like an hour after when I normally fall asleep, so it wasn't that dramatic.
Mine was like 4 hours after, you know?
Yeah, see? Yeah. It's like, some person might donate $1 million, some person might donate 10, but if the person who donated 10 only has $20 to their name, that's a bigger donation.
Exactly.
Anyways, Raheem Morris spoke with Denver media this morning and had a lot of interesting things to say. I thought it was interesting him talking about the lack of home field advantage. But most importantly, he, as someone who simply just watched the film, noticed something that it seems as if the Broncos coaches have not noticed. And it's not just Raheem Morris who's noticed this. It's, well, just about any person who has watched a Broncos game, not just this year, but last year or the year before that as well. And that is, in the words of Raheem Morris, that Phillip Lindsay is the heartbeat of the football team. And I think I said that about 100 times last week, so I'm very glad that Raheem Morris agrees with me on that. But guys, I couldn't help myself but to go back and read mentions on a tweet that I sent out June 10th of 2020, in which I said, "Hello, my friends. I'm just logging on to tell you that Phillip Lindsay is better than Melvin Gordon. Have a nice day. See you guys later." And the mentions were interesting. We had some of our very own good people who listen to this show telling me I was wrong, but I'm not going to name names. Anyways, one of the responses reminded me of something that Zach said, and I can't remember who said it in the responses, but Zach repeatedly in the offseason kept saying, "Ryan, I think you're right, but I'm just worried that the coaching staff isn't going to view it that way, and we're going to be banging our heads against the wall all season as Phillip Lindsay doesn't touch the ball enough." And so I think we both ended up being right here, Zach.
Yeah, our heads are bleeding from all the banging that we've been doing against those brick walls, guys, because, yeah, it's exactly right. Phillip Lindsay had a fantastic opportunity to be the starter this past week. Just put him out there for the first couple of snaps. Broncos didn't do it. And instead, they put Melvin Gordon out there playing against his old team. I get it. But also Melvin Gordon coming off a rough couple of weeks. When you have Phil back, you can bring some momentum to start the game. You're getting the ball to start the game. And then also not just that, but then at the end of the game, you have Melvin Gordon on the field on that last drive for the first part of it. And now credit to Melvin. He did step up, but I was still surprised to see that. The guy that jumpstarts your team in the middle of the game, the guy that brings the only boost for a long period of time in the game, he's on the bench when you need offense the most.
Yeah, that last possession is interesting in particular because you need explosiveness. But if you're Pat Shurmur, you may be thinking in terms of, okay, I need pass pro as well. Sometimes I've got to keep that guy in the backfield. And even though I know I don't agree with it because I want to have receiving targets out there, and I feel like you can get the pass pro from a different package. I think that was what governed the decision on the last drive to emphasize Melvin more than Phil, was the idea of needing someone extra in pass protection, even though it was clear by that point the Chargers were basically a 4-man rush, drop 17. So I think that's why you saw Melvin Gordon late. But I think also with what the Chargers were doing, I'm not sure that was the right call there, even though the Broncos did score. They walked off. Everybody was happy and all that, but it might have been a more electric and maybe a smoother drive if Phil had been out there to provide a little bit of explosiveness.
Yeah, real quick, just want to thank all of you who are joining us here this morning and listening in. And if you're watching on YouTube, we would love if you hit us with a thumbs up on this video. Of course, hit us with a subscribe to the page. Maybe even sign up for the alerts anytime we go live with the little bell next to that. I want to talk about why this is happening. And I think, Mase, you were on to something there talking about pass protection. It certainly plays a role, but I also think we can't just act like Phillip Lindsay can't pass protect in the same way that a lot of the offseason people wanted to act like Phillip Lindsay couldn't catch. Phillip Lindsay can pass protect. He's not as good as Melvin Gordon at pass protecting, and the same probably goes for catching passes. At least what we know of these two at this stage of their career. Phillip Lindsay can catch passes, of course. Melvin Gordon's probably a little better. At least he has proven to this point in his career that he is better at that. But what is going on here that is causing so many people to watch from home and say, how is he not getting the ball more? I mean, the other day, I think this is, I'm trying to give the coaches a little bit of the benefit of the doubt here. I think it was Phil coming off a concussion, not having a full week of practice, and them just being kind of cautious with him. That's the best I can do for them. But why did Zach already know this was going to happen all the way back in the offseason? And why is it so hard for management of the Denver Broncos to realize that Phillip Lindsay can be and is their number one running back?
Money. Follow the money, and it's so clear. And guys, the past 2 weeks, I want to say, I've got so many questions about, are the Broncos going to pay Phillip Lindsay? Is he going to stay on this team? And the honest to goodness answer is, I don't know. And every single person comes to me and says, Why would they not? He's their heartbeat of the team. He's their best player. He's what sparks the offense. And typically this would make it seem like there's something going on behind the scenes, right, guys? When there's these questions, like when players do great in training camp and preseason and then they never see the field, well, it's because there's something going on behind the scenes, right? And we know that, but fans aren't able to see that. With Phillip Lindsay, I haven't heard anything going on behind the scenes ever, so that just doesn't make sense.
Yeah, and I haven't heard anything behind the scenes, but the other thing when you start looking at Phillip Lindsay long term and whether the Broncos are going to give him a contract, you have to say, okay, do they want to give him a contract? And if you're Phillip Lindsay, what are you thinking of all this right now? Are you looking at the way the Broncos are using you, how they gave Melvin Gordon that contract, and certainly the timing works out to where you can get Melvin Gordon off your books and keep Phillip Lindsay on your books. But you're looking at this maybe and saying, are they into me? And the thing with Phil, he has the chip on his shoulder, which is one of his best attributes. One of the chips that's on his shoulder, guys, is the fact that he wasn't drafted, that that everybody, including the Broncos, passed on him to begin with. I mean, if you're Phil, maybe you're thinking, hey, this is still the same team that decided they'd rather draft Dave Williams than me.
The accountant.
Yeah. The accountant. Or Wendy's double stack. So I think there's a lot at play here. But when you say follow the money, Zach, it has to start with the idea that the Broncos wanted to go out and sign Melvin Gordon in the first place, which at the time I was in support of. And from a simply team building perspective, I understand the idea of wanting both of them. But what I think it comes down to is something that our friend Bronco Duck here just said in the comments. And he said, do you think it's a general injury concern / fragility due to size? I really do think that's it. And I don't necessarily think it's a knock from the Broncos on Phillip Lindsay as much as, a lot of Phillip Lindsay's detractors want to make it a knock. I don't think the Broncos necessarily think that Phil is injury prone because he had a wrist injury and a turf toe and a concussion, which held him out for just one half of one game. But I do think that it's, we know that NFL minds and NFL people are stubborn in their beliefs. And I just think that when an NFL coach or general manager looked at Phillip Lindsay, they say, small running back, not going to hold up over the course of a season. You give them a running back one load. And so this is actually the nicest thing I can say about this for the Broncos in the decision-making that's going on here. It's just that I think they're trying to protect Phil rather than, it being them putting a knock on Phil and saying, we don't think he can hold up. They're saying he's so important to us, we can't risk giving him so many carries that he ends up getting hurt.
So I have to ask, are the Broncos right? Because we saw Phil miss, 1.5 games his rookie season due to injury. Then this year, just in week 1, he misses the first half, then misses a couple more games. Then he gets a concussion, and this all happens the same year that they signed Melvin Gordon. So were the Broncos right about the injury concerns?
I kind of feel like they're a little lucky in this situation that it's looking that way, just because turf toe and a concussion are they're just fluky injuries. It's not something that you can predict based on workload for Phillip Lindsay. And there isn't any evidence to back up the fact that, he always has some little nagging injury, especially when you go back to his college days when he was just an absolute workhorse for the Buffs and never struggled with injury throughout his career there. So yes, they've been vindicated this year because, you would have been down to Royce Freeman and Levante Bellamy for 4 games or whatever it was, 3 games without Phil. But I think with hindsight being 2020, they would have gotten someone better than Royce, not as expensive as Melvin Gordon, because Melvin Gordon certainly hasn't lived up to his price tag. And he just, I mean, it looks like he's running in slow motion out there after Phillip Lindsay comes off the field. He's not nearly as dynamic. He's nearly as explosive. He's not really a power back at heart who loves to run between the tackle, so he's not that great of a contrast to what you have in Phillip Lindsay. So I think it can be a little bit of both. Yes, they were right to want to bring in another running back. No, they probably weren't right to make Melvin Gordon so much more of a high-paid player than Phillip Lindsay. And potentially, I don't know anything about this, but potentially sever some of the relationship with Phillip Lindsay moving forward, because it's very clear that he's the best running back they have. He's the best running back they've had in a long time in Denver. So I don't know. What I hope is that they're slowly but surely learning if we want to win football games, we need to give the ball to Phillip Lindsay more. And I hope that he ends up churning out his third consecutive 1,000-yard season, even with the injuries.
Yeah, I mean, I think going back to just the expenditure on Melvin Gordon, I mean, $8 million plus for Melvin Gordon, it would have been better spent elsewhere. And you could, maybe you could have gotten someone to kind of spell Phillip Lindsay. You could have gotten a Devontae Freeman, I believe, for like $1,350,000.
Yeah,
and
okay,
spent that
much
elsewhere.
better.
Yeah, there were better ways to spend that money. And the interesting thing is, if you take that to its potentially logical conclusion and say, well, we're just not going to pay any running backs, that means you're probably not paying Phillip Lindsay, although, again, he does bring something more emotional, like Raheem Morris said, the heartbeat of the team. Now, I want to ask you guys this. How many games do you think Saquon Barkley has missed in his career?
Oh, God.
So he was this is his third year, correct?
Third year. Same class as Phil.
So
he was mostly healthy as a rookie.
Mm-hmm.
I want to say he played 14 games as a rookie. Is that right?
Well, I want you
Okay.
work that out, and then and then you guess the game and number of games, and I'll tell you the answer.
I'm gonna say he's played 25.
Okay.
I'm going to say he's played 24.
Okay. He's played 31 games.
Oh, okay.
Oh.
But he only missed 3 games last year. Of course, he's on the shelf right now. But that means, guys, he's missed 9 games.
Yep.
Phillip Lindsay has missed 5 games.
Yep.
In his career. Or, pardon me, 4 games. Because he missed 3 games this year and then 1 game back in 2018, pardon me. So Saquon Barkley's missed 9 games. Phillip Lindsay missed 4. Why are we calling Phillip Lindsay injury prone and you don't hear the same thing about Saquon Barkley, even though he's on the shelf right now with an ACL?
Yeah,
I think you probably have to.
People are, I think, starting to say that about Saquon Barkley, but what they're not saying is the Giants can't move forward with Saquon Barkley as their workhorse, because the Giants as a franchise really can't go anywhere unless Saquon Barkley is their workhorse and he stays healthy. And that's the conundrum that they're in. But you're right. The thing is, running backs get hurt. They take more hits than anyone else on the field, and it's just a law of averages that they're going to eventually get hurt. The numbers are honestly telling us that Phillip Lindsay isn't very injury prone, or at least he's just middle of the road when it comes to running backs getting dinged up.
I mean, just look at Christian McCaffrey this year getting banged up. I mean, has Zeke not really missed much time? I don't think he's missed much time throughout his career, but all major running backs seem to miss a decent amount of time.
Yeah, I mean, you of course have the freaks like Derrick Henry and Zeke who, generally stay very healthy. But I don't think I think Broncos.
Zeke's missed 8 games in his career, guys.
Okay.
And that's the
there
thing.
we go.
It happens to running backs. I mean, Christian McCaffrey getting through the first 2 years of his career, not missing a game, and finally missing games in year 3. I mean, that's the exception. That's the rare circumstance.
And now Christian McCaffrey has missed as many games in his career as Phillip Lindsay has.
And now, so I guess if you really want to avoid an injury-prone back, get a 6'3", 250 running back, and then you should be pretty good.
I think the Broncos are being, proactive. At least they think they're being proactive in their approach to keeping Phillip Lindsay healthy. I just think that every time they do that, they're lowering their ceiling. And so as a team this year and moving forward, they have to make the decision. Are we willing to take the risk of Phil getting hurt to give ourselves the highest ceiling? Because if you give Phil the ball at a number one running back rate and he stays healthy the whole season, that is your highest ceiling as a team. And it's so abundantly obvious how much better he is than Melvin Gordon or anyone else that the Broncos have trotted out there since Phillip Lindsay joined the team.
And go ahead.
You can go, Mase.
Well, Phil had 23 carries against the Patriots. Mm-hmm. I'm not saying he should get that every game. I mean, that's probably on the high side. But shouldn't a goal for Phil every game be 15 to 19 touches per game?
Yes, without a doubt. And he had 6 carries and 1 catch this past game. That is 7. So we're saying he should at least have double, if not triple, that number. And guys, here's some good news. No one wants a player to be suspended on the Broncos, but it looks like Melvin Gordon will be suspended for 3 games. So the Broncos will be forced to do this. Now, maybe they use Royce Freeman a ton in the Melvin Gordon role, and then we don't get to see it. But I think that would tell us what we need to know moving forward, because I think that would be a decision made not just by Pat Shurmur and Vic Fangio, but John Elway as well. And then I think we'll know, okay, they really don't value Phillip Lindsay and really don't think he can be the one. So really don't expect him to be paid as a true number one running back here. But if they go out and use him like they did against the Patriots, 23 carries, 101 yards, he didn't have a 55-yard run. That was a workhorse type of carries there for him. Then I think that they'll be putting him through the test to see, okay, after this year, is this a guy that we can count on to be that guy? Because in that stretch, he should be getting 60 carries in those 3 games if Melvin Gordon is in fact suspended this year. And at least I hope that's what we see, right, guys? It can kind of be a trial period for the team.
Here's the conundrum for the Broncos, and surprise, surprise, we're here again. Don't let the injuries fool you. Phillip Lindsay is playing the best football of his career right now. His vision has gotten better. His explosion is still the same, and he is running the ball extremely well. So here we are once again. Phillip Lindsay's price tag is only going up, and the more, if this team wants to, reach their goals, they're going to have to give him the ball more, and his price is only going to go up the more they do that. And so the Broncos have put themselves in a bad situation here, where they probably could have taken some of the money that they used to sign Melvin Gordon, used that to extend Phillip Lindsay, and then brought in Devontae Freeman to be his backup. Well, now you're not in that situation. Now you've got $8 million on the books next year again, I believe, for Melvin Gordon. And every time you hand the ball to Phillip Lindsay, because he's playing so well, his value just goes up. So the Broncos have put themselves in another awkward position here by not being proactive with their signings of players.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And I mean, let's say you're talking about that $8 million, and Melvin Gordon being suspended could get some of that off the books, but you're still talking about a scenario where that money would be better spent on, a backup quarterback who can actually keep things upright if Drew Lock goes down, or if Drew Lock doesn't take the next step and there are questions about him going forward, at least a Ryan Tannehill-like hedge, like the Titans had when Marcus Mariota was going into the 2019 season. These are things that you could do with that $8 million that would be.
Do we lose Mase there?
I think we did lose Mase. I thought he was just thinking there for a second, but he froze on us. Yeah, I mean, exactly. Those are the decisions that have to make.
Well, the funny thing is we see some comments coming in about Phillip Lindsay's pass protection, and we did address that earlier as far as why Melvin Gordon was in the game on that last series. That was probably what Pat Shurmur was thinking, that he wanted the better pass pro back. But let's just kind of go away from the end of the game and say, all right, if Phillip Lindsay is your back, how do you get that pass pro? You simply use different alignments. I mean, you go with 2 tight ends and say, all right, well, if they're going to bring the rush, one of the tight ends has got to stay home. There's some promise from Jeremy Cox as a fullback. You do some more I formation type of stuff, and hey, that means if you're running, you got an extra blocker kind of plowing the way for Phil. And if you're going for the pass, you send Phillip Lindsay out in a route, and Jeremy Cox is the guy who's staying home in pass pro. There are ways to get this done and still have Phil out there for key situations.
Yeah, what's crazy is, we've talked so much about how Drew Lock has been better under center, and he looks better in Scangarello-esque concepts.
Mhm.
The same goes for Phillip Lindsay last year. Remember how much better Phil was last year when he had Jano in front of him?
Yep.
That was his most productive times, is when he had Jano out there.
Maybe Phil should have been saying, "Love Jano."
He does. He
Yeah.
does.
All you need to do is trade a conditional 7th round pick to get him right back, right, guys?
So
I don't think Kevin Stefanski's letting him go. I think they like Jano in Cleveland way too much right now.
But the point is, though, that the Broncos need to look in the mirror and ask themselves what they want to be. If they want to be a playoff team, it involves getting under center more, handing the ball up to Phillip Lindsay more, running play action more, all of that stuff. And one thing that I think we've learned that we weren't sure of when Phillip Lindsay was a rookie. When Phil was a rookie, he got a lot of his feasting off of misdirection runs. And I think there was an idea back then that, well, you can't just only run misdirection. You actually can. You can run traps and counters and all of these different, base plays. You can run them as much as you want. Every time they do it with Phillip Lindsay, it's working. So I think there was like this old school idea, like, well, you still have to pound the rock sometimes, and you can't expect the counters and traps to just work all day. You can. So they need to run more of that, more misdirection off of your misdirection with play action. It's just there's so many different things you can do here, but I think Phillip Lindsay is breaking a lot of molds. You can run those plays as much as you want, and I think Sean McVay is a big guy, and just keep running it if it works, and that's how I feel about this too. If, those counters are working, just keep running them. You can feed the rock to Phillip Lindsay, as he's shown, and you don't need to necessarily worry about him. And you know what? The Broncos can tell themselves when they're having these meetings this week, hey, we have Melvin Gordon. Now he's just a really good safety plan in case Phil does get hurt, and we can give Phil the rock more.
Yeah, and he's a really good number 2 running back, and that's just something that they have to look past the money there for. And we'll see when that happens, if that happens, because opposing teams are noticing that and know that Phil is the heart and soul of this team. So you got to have your heart and soul out there. So guys, my final question to you about this is, what's Phil's price tag? But what does he sign for with the Broncos if he does, whether it's this year, whether it's next year? If it happens, what's the money that he's looking for?
We'll start with next year because you're looking at the RFA tender. So that's probably going to be right around $3 million, a little bit above that if the Broncos put a second round tender on him. And if they don't want him to walk in free agency, they're going to have to give him that second round tender. So that probably buys them some time. Now, there's what Phillip Lindsay's going to want and what he may end up getting. I think if you're Phil, you probably want a multi-year deal worth about $6 million a year, roughly the Austin Eckler kind of contract.
More.
Yeah.
I think the number he has in mind is 8, because he said, I know you're willing to pay number 1 running backs $8 million. I just saw it in front of me. And you know what? I'm better than that number 1 running back. And I think Phil is just very disrespected, and he feels that from the Broncos, and he's done giving hometown discounts. So I think that's the number he goes for. Now, Mase, you make a good point about the RFA. I think if you want to get a long-term deal done after this year, the RFA helps lower that $8 million. But I think that's the only reason why you get a hometown discount is because of that, not because of him actually wanting to stay in Denver and be nice to the Broncos.
And that's why there might be value there, because you could say this is a contract that still gives you potentially $24 million. This will give you maybe like $22 million over 3 years. So maybe not $8 million. Maybe it's more in the $7 million range. But we're taking this last year and we're tearing up $3.2 million, and we're saying, okay, you're gonna make say $6 million of that, and then you get a little more on the back end. And then it's a question of what the guarantee is. Is the guarantee say as much as 14 or 15 million?
So what I think they should do is somewhere in between what you guys are talking about. And I think they might be able to get a lower price tag on the per year salary by giving Phil some long-term security. Because let's be honest, Phillip Lindsay wants to be in Denver. You know, he's a Denver kid. He's starting a family in Denver. His family lives in Denver. He wants to be here. And so I think it would be smart on the Broncos should want Phillip Lindsay to be a Bronco for life. If they're smart, they should want Phillip Lindsay to be a Bronco for life. So sign him up for a 5-year deal and take some money off of the per year salary. And of course, we know that these 5-year deals don't always work out that way. But I think the only way you're going to get a discount, because if I'm Phil, I'm saying exactly what Zach is saying. Like, what you just paid that guy $8 million, and I proved time and time again that I'm better than him. So you have to pay me more than him. And he has every right to say that. But I think if they say, look, man, we want you to be a Bronco for life, we're going to sign you up for 5 years, which is unheard of for a running back of your age, then they can get a little bit of a discount on the per year. And the Broncos should want Phillip Lindsay in their locker room for as long as they possibly can.
Yeah, even if in years 4 and 5 of that contract, if he were to see that out, if he truly is the number 2 and no one's saying how disrespectful it is, because he'd be a great guy for someone to learn from. And he'd also be a great guy to be a second punch. Are you kidding me?
Yeah. So I hope that's what happens. I hope Phillip Lindsay is a Bronco for life. But the Broncos have already mismanaged this situation, as they have with many of their young players who sprout. They just wait, and sometimes they end up pricing themselves out. I don't think that'll happen just based on the market out there for running backs right now. I think the Broncos, if they want to keep Phil, will have the opportunity to do so. We should also mention that they might be able to get out of this Melvin Gordon contract for next season because of his suspension. And so that's something that, could play a role in this as well. Great conversation. I really enjoyed that. So thank you guys. Thanks to everyone who is tuning in on the YouTube side of things. Love if you hit us with a thumbs up on the video. We always appreciate those. We are going to continue this on the podcast side where we're going to get to everyone's questions. But again, really appreciative of everyone who tuned in with us today. I know there's a lot going on, so hopefully we can be a distraction for those who needed it and just entertainment for those who wanted that. But for this side of things on the live, we're going to talk to you guys later.